Welcome to my Lunch and Learn today. My name is Anya, and today I'm going to talk about Angular 2 and Typescript, specifically how to set up Angular 2 with Django project. Yes, Angular 2 is coming. It's getting more and more popular. So just a brief overview of Angular. It's a JavaScript framework that was developed by Google in 2010. This is the second version. The first version was released like 5 years ago. Here are two key differences between Angular 1 and Angular 2. So first of all, Angular 2 works with Typescript, which is really nice because Typescript allows you to write classes and types, and then it compiles into pure JavaScript. And the second key difference is that it is component-based, so there are no controllers and directives anymore, and no scopes. So here's an example of the same code, but was written in Angular 1 and Angular 2. So as you can see, in Angular 2, there's a component, and inside there you basically declare all your logical stuff there. So for example, the selector, my selector is named example, and it's basically your attribute name that you're gonna write in your HTML. And then in view, I declare template URL, which basically the HTML template that will be generated inside the example tag. Then I'm creating a class example, and I'm having a field name, which is type of string. And in the constructor, I'm initializing this name to be like John Smith. So unlike in Angular 1, where it's using scopes, I'm just using the constructor basically. So now I'll go over how to set up Angular 2 with Django. So first of all, you'll have to create config and dependencies files, so like package.json, jsconfig.json, and typings.json. Then you set up TypeScript settings in PyCharm, install all your dependencies, and then you add those dependencies to your HTML file, and you can start coding. So I already have my Django project set up already with some sample entries in my database. And now I'll go to my client file and create a new folder named static. And there I will write all my JavaScript files basically. I will just copy and paste all these JSON files because it's really boring to see me typing them. So in package.json, you will have to include all these files. So Angular 2 systems is6 reflect metadata Rxjs and zone.js. You can get them on Angular 2 website. It's just like a bundle. You have they all go together. All right, so now I have all my JSON files here. I'm going to install them.
Can you tell us what those did?
Yeah, so package.json, like you just like write all your node dependencies in there. tsconfig is for configuring your Typescript. So you're setting all like target, for example, is like what like JavaScript version you want your types to compile to, and then module is what like modules you use for like importing all your JavaScript files. So I'm using systems here, and then like all other stuff. So it's basically like settings. And then typings.json is used for identifying missing TypeScript types definition files. So here's the ES6 streams and Jasmine. Installed. Okay, so now I have all my node modules installed. I will go to my PyCharm settings, language frameworks, and TypeScript, and I will enable TypeScript compiler and use tsconfig.json. All right. So now I have my dependencies installed. I can go ahead and create my up folder where I will write all my Angular 2 codes. So I will have up.component.ts, which means like it's a TypeScript file, and a main file that will basically run all my Angular 2 the components. Now I'll go to my HTML file, my main, my Django template. I have to make it down. Okay. So here I'm importing all node, like Angular 2 node modules and its dependencies. And then down here, I'm having system.config. So it's basically importing all like dependencies for Angular 2. And the nice thing about system is that if you have like really big Angular 2 project, you don't have to like include them all like here. You only have to import the main file, and then it will automatically import all like the rest basically. So here I'm importing my main Angular file, and here I'm setting up all the configurations for my system.js. All right, so now let's go to apt component. So now I'm going to write like the simplest Angular 2 code, which basically I want my website to like have at least like something. So I'm going to import. I'm sure I can do it like this way. So I'm going to have a component here, and I'll name my selector to be my up. Then I will have my template, which is URL is going to be static up and up. So the template URL, I'm including the path to my, sorry, didn't see that. Including the path to my HTML file. And I'm going to create it now. So that's it for now. I will export.
What's the selector?
Oh, the selector is my tag name basically. So it's going to be generated. So if you go to home.html again, you can see like my up tag here, like attribute, and basically whatever is in Angular, in up.html will be generated inside here. So right now it's just like loading, but when I add stuff to my up.html, it will like replace this and be here.
Can you have multiple of those in one HTML file? Like, can I have like a bunch of my app?
No, it's unique, so you can have only one.
But you could have my app and you could have other ones.
So I'm going to create this class up component. And I will have like title, step string, wait no, constructor, it's called. No, there's something wrong.
Export class app component.
Oh, right. Class. I will assign this dot title to be like, let's say hello. In my main file, I will bootstrap my app.component.typescript file. So I'll have to So I'm bootstrapping my app component file, and yeah, that's it. And in my app.html file, I will have the title here. So now when I run this and go to my website, I can see that my title field that I declared here has been generated here. So now I have like a small database I set up in Django. I would like to send like an GET request, get some data, and then display it on my Angular app. So what I will have to do now is import HTTP from Angular 2.hp. So what it allows me is to send GET or like POST or like patch requests. And in constructor, I will have to do private HTTP. So basically, I'm saying I will have HTTP as well. And I will create a function named get authors, because I want to get like a list of authors. This. And now I'm going to write a GET request for that. The API endpoint is authors. All right, I have to. Also, I have to import Rxjs. It's a JavaScript library that allows you to have observatives, and so it's like promises, but like it has much more like functionality. So the map function is, in Angular 2, when you do a GET request, it returns you an observative type. And you have to do map on your whatever you get from the GET request. So it's going to be response. And I know that I'm going to get something like an array or like an object, so I'm going to map it to a JSON type. And then I'm going to subscribe to my response, so I can see like whatever data I receive from it. So if it's a data, I would like to assign it to my, I'll create here, authors. If it's a data, I would like to assign it to my authors fields here. So I will say this.authors is equal to data. And if I receive an error, I will just print it out. And I will call this function inside my constructor. So now if I refresh the page, all right. So I'm getting an error here saying no provider for HTTP. It's because in my main file, I didn't pass a HTTP provider for my app component. So I will do it now. Okay. Oh, okay. So now I'm not getting any Angular 2 errors anymore, but nothing is displayed here for now. So I will render my results here. So it's a title. I'll create the list of authors and UL. And I'll use a for loop here because I'm receiving an array list of objects, and I want to display each object as a list. So the way you do for loops in Angular 2 is you do asterisk ng4. So for each author of authors. And authors is my argument in my component class. Something. I'll say each tree is going to display author.name. Then here I will display author.isFrom. So here's all the data that I received from the database, and I just like rendered it here using the for loop. So each of these is basically an object in the array that I received from the database. Yeah, so that's it basically. Any questions? Yeah.
That was cool. what is TypeScript though, and why are we using it?
So TypeScript is a form of JavaScript. We use it because it's really, really nice to have classes and like types, but like JavaScript doesn't offer that. So just like to make it all like the experience like better and like make your code like clearer, we use TypeScript, and like it eventually will compile to JavaScript. But yeah.
Can you go to the HTTP request real quick?
Yeah.
So when you subscribe and then you say data and error, is it just default behavior that the first one will be if there was a successful response and the second variable is the error?
Yeah, so if you, it's kind of like reserved, like, I don't know,
Like if you reverse those.
reverse.
It's just the signature of the function, Alex. It doesn't matter what you call those. They could have been like poop and.
No, I know. I'm asking if the order goes. Like if she swaps lines 22 and 23, then is it going to print out the authors?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you want like this, for example? Like whatever.
Yeah, if you do.
It assumes that the first piece is the success case, the second piece is the error case, and the third piece is like the on complete always case.
That's all I wanted to know.
Yeah, it's printed out here. Yeah, so I guess it's just like the last line is always the error line, and you can have like multiple stuff here as well.
So the equal greater than sign is just like an assignment?
Yeah, so you're basically saying if I get an error, then it's like then, yeah.
What was the hardest part about setting TypeScript and Angular 2 up, maybe with the Django project?
The hardest part was actually setting up the system.js because like I didn't really know that like in which like how I should like include like my paths and stuff, because I was like just getting errors and like it wasn't really clear. That was like the hardest part, and also like I get used to like when I was writing in Angular 1, like I was including all my Angular files in here, and I did the same thing with Angular 2, and I was getting like weird errors, but I didn't know like why I'm getting them. But apparently, like in Angular 2, you don't have to include any of your Angular code here. You only import in your main file, and it will automatically import everything else.
Do you like it?
Angular 2?
Angular 2 and TypeScript, yeah.
Yeah, I like it much more than Angular 1. Like for me, Angular 1 was actually really, really hard for me to understand at the beginning because it was short. Like if you look at the code comparison between like Angular 1 and Angular 2, like you can see the Angular 1 is really short, but it's really like unclear. And like there's a lot of like callbacks and stuff. So yeah. Yeah.
Is the TypeScript compiler built into the browser, or is that something that you have to import?
So no, it's not built into the browser. You're basically using JavaScript files that was generated by TypeScript compiler. So if you expand the TypeScript, you can see like there's JavaScript and JSMap files under the TypeScript file. If you open them, you can see this is basically the JavaScript code that was generated from my TypeScript file.
Okay, so you have like another file that's in JavaScript that compiles whatever you write with a .ts ending into like plain JavaScript, and then that plain JavaScript is what's run
Yeah, so this is what I'm using. Yeah.
Flip back and forth between this and the TypeScript file real quick,
Yeah.
just to see kind of how big some file. Oh, wow, okay.
And is there a command you run to do the compilation? Or
Um,
does it do it on the fly?
Well, because I set up in my PyCharm, so it like recognizes TypeScript files and it compiles it right away. You can do the compilation in terminal. Like there's a comment for that. You just like type a tsc and like, the file name and that's all. Yeah. TCP, I think. Yeah. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all for listening to me.